Wait! This isn't Baldur's Gate! In March 2011, The Sims Medieval was released. I always thought it was a tie-in to the Sims 3 Ambitions expansion pack, because of the time machine featured in that pack. Occasionally, Sims from your Sims past or future would crawl out, claiming to be a relative or ancestor. And I thought your Sims Medieval Sims would pop out, but they never did. But the idea was cool. Ambitions came out in June 2010, and Medieval was March 2011, as said before. So who knows? Maybe it is. Who's to say? Although the game is an entirely new setting, with loosely fixed camera angles, minimal decorating and clothing choices, and being set in medieval times, it is still a Sims game at heart, with all its goofy and silly content it has to offer. And screaming. The first thing to do is name our kingdom. I chose Baldur's Gate, because I want to make a video on Baldur's Gate 3, but I don't have it on Steam at this current moment. So this is the next best thing. Unlike a usual Sims game, where you control a family with multiple Sims which you can switch to on the fly, Sims Medieval is typically one Sim per quest, depending on the quest specifications. It's sort of like an RPG. Do quests to gain XP for your Sim, gain rewards for your kingdom such as culture points and renown, to gain more buildings, and other Sims to do quests with, to gain more points, to gain more buildings for the kingdom, and gain more Sims to do quests with, to then gain more points, to then do more quests, and gain more building, and do quests. I'm actually really not sure what the end goal of the game is. I never got very far. You see this wheel? No idea. I don't know what the rest of this means. But maybe we'll get further, either in this video or in a series of videos. Who knows? All I knew was doing the quests and gaining the points made my little gamer brain very happy. Our starting Sim is the ruler of this land. As always, he's called Crunch. Just another Crunch to add to the Crunchverse. Except there are different classes, if you could call them that, in this game. So this Crunch is King Crunch. This was a mistake. His name is now Lord King. I wanted him to look like Shrek, but there are limited skin tones in this game. And Shrek is green! So I made him look like Astarion from Baldur's Gate. And I feel with the limited choices that I had, I did a real nice job. Medieval only requires 2 traits and 1 negative trait called a fatal flaw. I like the fatal flaw idea. I wish other Sims games had incorporated this. I gave him vain, eloquent, but licentious. I think that's how you pronounce that word, because I felt it fit Astarion best. I wish I could play this game like a D&D game by rolling a die on decisions, but it's not really that type of game. There's not many decisions to make. Our first quest is simply a tutorial, just letting us get a feel for the game. But I've played The Sims before, so this is total backseating game. The tutorial is actually optional, but it's been a while, so I'm going to do it, but I'm going to complain about it the whole time. Before I begin, now that I'm actually in the game, I'm going to change the resolution and up the brightness. Much better. King Crunch was looking a little stumpy. The first thing to do in the quest is actually gussy up in the mirror. I mistook this as King Crunch being vain and made him check himself out. I feel the same way, for I am but a simple budgie. King Crunch gained 10 XP from simply looking at himself in the mirror. Who knew gaining experience was so easy? The game then showed me how to check his mood, but I'd already seen it, so I just mashed through and didn't read it. Next up was to chat to our buildmaster about the state of the castle. He sort of looked like Al from Home Improvement, and his name was Alonius? Alonus? I can't say his name. So maybe that was the joke? Or maybe his name was randomly generated, and it was all just a coincidence. Al tells us we need more materials for the next building in the kingdom, and King Crunch states he enjoys getting his hands dirty, which is definitely the game putting words in his mouth, as I highly doubt he does. We headed on over to the woods, which took forever, as there's no vehicles in Sims Medieval. Understandable, but they could have added horses. King Crunch was collecting flowers from outside the forest. I guess that'll brighten up the throne room? When a bandit threatened King Crunch, his money and his life, it's a 2-for-1 deal. It was time for the swordplay tutorial. Each sim had a health bar and a stamina bar. I assumed sims could die during a duel, but I'd never had it happen, so maybe we'll try in another video. King Crunch beat her with ease, as it was the tutorial, and then headed on in to collect the wood that we needed for the quest. Whilst the bandit just lay there for hours. She wasn't dead, I could see her breathing. Eventually she hobbled away. Next was to head to the graveyard. Not a cemetery, as I believe it has to be connected to a church, and we didn't have religion in the kingdom yet. The gravedigger wanted a church to give these poor people a nice proper burial, which was nice of him to think about, but I didn't know what to do here. I was confused by all the sims lying on the ground. I don't think they were dead, as King Crunch could interact with them, but they wouldn't stand up, and turns out we'd come to the graveyard to collect stone from the cave. Not to talk to the gravedigger, but I suppose this was to show the player how many different sims lived in the kingdom. Afterwards, it was time to head to the village shop. You can tell it's medieval because it has an E at the end of the word shop. I got King Crunch the essentials: cheese and a frog. I didn't really know what he needed, I wasn't paying attention. But we got the ingredients for King Crunch to make better meals than gruel. A lady told King Crunch of somebody bullying sims by the well. It seemed weird to tell the king about this, but I guess we didn't have anyone else in the kingdom, so she didn't have anyone else to ask. King Crunch sent the bully to the stocks and threw a tomato at them. Mild abuse of power, but on brand for King Crunch. After a little dancing to a travelling bard in the throne room, Crunch made some food and then flirted with the travelling bard because the game told me to. Now the game was trying to tell me about how to do Crunch's daily tasks. These help with a hero sim's focus, but sometimes they are hard to do. Like I had no idea how to sick a parrot on somebody till the next quest, so that one didn't get done today. I then got Crunch the best bed I could afford, just to flex on the poorer sims mooching around the castle. He slept soundly, ready for another day of ruling the kingdom. The next morning, our task was to redecorate the throne room, but I'd already spent all the money on the fancy bed, so all we could afford was the plant. Al loved it, but this other sim hated it, so mixed feelings from everybody. We were nearly out of the tutorial, with just seeing who our allies were on the diplomacy war table thing. They were Prince Rick and this guild lady person. I never paid attention to her. We mostly devoted all our time and energy to Prince Rick. And with one last discussion from Al, the tutorial was over. Like I said earlier, it was more to get a feel of the game and how it was slightly different to a regular Sims game. King Crunch finished this quest with a silver rating and gained some XP for his ruler stat, and we were able to build a new building for the kingdom. We chose a tavern for the kingdom to increase our culture and gain a bard to do quests with. Now we have 2 Crunches to do quests with, but we'll get to the bard later. We were finally out of the tutorial and general build-up of the game, so it's time for our first quest. Crunch goes fishing. I honestly cannot resist fishing in games. When I saw one of the first quests was a fishing one, I had to go for it. A fishing tournament is being held in the kingdom, and despite being ruler, with lots of stuff to do, King Crunch wants to participate. And again, despite being the ruler, King Crunch had to pay to enter the competition. I could have had him persuade against having to pay it, but I wanted him to play fairly. King Crunch needed fishing training to win the fishing tournament for some reason. So we headed on down to the docks, where we had to select from 2 fishermen. This weird looking guy with a bowl cut, or this cute looking guy. I obviously chose the cute guy, and have King Crunch start flirting with him immediately, because he is licentious. And he'll do a lot of flirting in this playthrough. Fishy Man gave us a few hints on how to fish. They were basically just fish. So I just have King Crunch carry on fishing as normal. He caught some fishies, including a big trout, so I send King Crunch back up to the castle to show the advisor what he'd caught. She wasn't impressed and told King Crunch that somebody else had caught something better and to go back to the beach and do something better. After a little bit more flirting and a rejected first kiss, Fishy Man told King Crunch about a legendary lobster, and how to catch it was to attempt to catch it whilst unfocused. Once again, I didn't understand what he meant, so I had King Crunch just fish as normal again. He caught a swordfish. I thought this was a great catch, but the game insisted on this legendary lobster. So I had Crunch just wait around and become unfocused. Before long, his focus dropped, and I sent King Crunch fishing one last time, where he caught the legendary lobster that the game insisted he catch. King Crunch then went back up to the castle once again to show the advisor his prize-winning catch to win the competition. She claimed a lobster isn't technically a fish, which was my thinking, and I was still upset about what was wrong with our swordfish. But she was happy with our catch, and this catch meant King Crunch had won the fishing tournament. After this quest, King Crunch levelled his ruler stat up to 3. I'm still uncertain what this means, but I'm happy for him. And the castle gained a banquet hall. When Sims loitering around the castle weren't gathered around this thing, or sitting in Crunch's bedroom whilst he slept, they were all in here, making a lot of noise. And for the kingdom, we gained a wizard tower, and obtained Wizard Crunch, who looked like Gale from Baldur's Gate, obviously. But we'll get to him later. My editing style doesn't really lend it out to be good for casual gameplay, mostly challenges. But Sims Medieval was a good starting point to ease myself into doing more casual gameplay content, with its short, quest-based stories. Let me know if you'd like to see more Sims Medieval videos with the Crunch Gang. There was no possible way I could have done every quest I did in one video without it being super long, so I just showed you the first 2 I did. We've been on a bit of a Sims binge lately. Understandable, as it's one of my favourite franchises of all time. And you've all been enjoying it, so it just felt good. But I'd like to do some other games for a bit. Don't worry, I won't stray too far, and The Sims will always be back, as I have so many ideas for you to see. Why not comment on future games you'd like to see? And if you're new, check out some of my other Cringe Fest content, and subscribe to keep up with the Cringe Fest. But for now, I need to go watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Goodbye!